I am not a trance channel. So what I mean by that is whatever comes, comes. It's hard for me to prepare for these sort of things. I do sit with the beings that I channel for anywhere from days to weeks to several months to years in advance to kind of get used to their energy before I invite them, you know, in a channeling like this and talk about heavy matters, you know, just so that I can get a feel for them. Edgar Cayce was one that I had a very difficult time getting to know. He has a really unique presence. I started talking to him about, I want to say anywhere from 8 to 10 months ago. And he was talking to me partially in this vernacular that was really unusual for those of you who know him when he goes into trance, you know, which I'm not going to do today. Again, I'm a trance channel. He goes into a trance, and this is why they called him the sleeping prophet. And he begins to speak in a universal source mind. He speaks from source consciousness. That's like an entire universal collective. And he speaks in a very unusual language. So I'm getting a lot of that. And then when he's out of that state, then there's this other entire presence where he just speaks to me kind of like an older man in the 1940s, a little bit of humor, you know, really humble presence with kind of a fun sense of humor, but really down to earth when he's in that presence. So he's been kind of alternating in and out of all of that. So sometimes if you hear me speak something in some interesting vernacular that doesn't quite sound usual, you'll hear it really soon. And you'll understand that that's him when he's coming through in his trance nature, like in the sleeping prophet that you knew him as. Like for those of you who are members of ARE, you know, that's his institute. In his readings, you'll know that that's what he sounds like. So I'm getting a little bit of both. There are a lot of topics that he has asked me to cover today. I'm going to cover those topics as quickly as I can. He does have an intro statement. When he first began to speak to me about 8 months ago, the first thing that he said to me was that the human conscious collective is worried about their life purpose and why they're here, that so many people felt lost, misguided, felt as if they just generally had no direction. And he wanted to talk about that. You know, he and I have been talking about that for a little while, and there are plenty of things that he wants to say about the true purpose of being here on Earth. So we will start with that, and then I'm going to scroll through your questions, the questions that you're putting live today in the questions and answers section. Again, not in the chat room, please, because that's so hard for me to follow unless it's just a follow-up. So we're going to go from that to the event page questions, and then back to you, and then to the event page questions. Let's start with what he was talking to me earlier in regards to life purpose. This is what he said about that. He said, the truest purpose is service. You're here to help others. I stated in a reading once the following regarding a more individual purpose to life. And oh, that all would realize that what we are is a result of what we have done about the ideals we have set. You may choose an ideal you feel your heart leads you towards, then simply apply it to your lives. Release your addiction to fear and confusion. The hemming and hawing over, is this right, is that right, isn't productive in your path on Earth. Simply choose an ideal and the path will follow and present itself to you. Source will guide you further if you're listening. You'll feel divine inspiration in these ideals. And this is how you'll know it is the correct path for you. The highest ideal or purpose one could choose is finding the Christ within. This isn't a religious theory or practice. The soul of the Christ has been on this planet since the rise and fall of Atlantis. Finding the Christ isn't a one-time fulfillment of a karmic lesson or purpose. It isn't a test one can pass or fail. It is a life of commitment to following your heart's highest endeavor. You will be challenged, encouraged, guided, and sometimes even prodded into creating your own life's masterpiece. You can then manifest your lives in the highest and best for yourselves, the planet, and all this will live on this beautiful planet within you. In your actions, it will be expressed. The intention behind your ideals will be what drives a successful purpose here. If your intention is love, compassion, earnestness, and grace, no idea can fail. Each individual entity here, whether aware of same or not, sets before self an ideal in the material world, in the mental world, in the spiritual world. If you establish a conscious ideal in your life, this begins a grid work of heart-centered guidance and purity in connection to Source. Do not carelessly flow with the tides and changes. Purposefully engage yourselves in your lives. Your mindful, conscious service to yourselves and others in your ideals is the most significant thing you can do on Earth. Okay, I'm going to move past that and go straight on into some of your questions. Give me a second while he and I both scroll through. Is the relationship between Cayce and Rudolf Steiner relevant in today's life events? He says this relationship has been ongoing since Atlantis and continues forth into this day and age, is still relevant, along with our relationship with Nikola Tesla. I expected that, actually. Okay. Looks like it is relevant. Okay. Okay, somebody had a question from the event page about Jesus. And the question is there a Jesus or God? Why does he allow Earth to be in such a horrible state, if so? And he states, in the beginning, you were one with God. Through the power of your free will, you were able to express as a projection of spirit into physical body. The power of your free will, which caused you to make choices that were not in perfect accordance with Creator, caused this chaos. You created Earth, not God. You created it to be exactly as it is, for means of expansion and personal growth. At some point in Earth's history, you will arise once more to rejoin with Source, regaining your realization that you are indeed God. And at this point, you will see divine reality, and that everything in this realm is a projection of your own dream creation. God desired to be expressed in this world through you. The example set by the being you call Jesus is a pattern, an example of wholeness for each and every soul. Regardless of anyone's individual religious or personal belief systems, this Christ pattern exists in its potential upon the very fiber of your being. And in this part of each of you, that is in perfect accord with Creator and waiting to find expression in your lives. Let's take another. I'm just going to move through really, really quickly, guys. Oh, it's about enlightenment. That's interesting. The question is, I've been told that I'm enlightened, but I want to know more specifically about what my mission is. Can you help me with insight, please? He says, again, finding and serving. When you are in service to others, your mission will become apparent. You will be guided to find it at this point. Let's take another. See, this is from the event page. Is Jesus the true Son of God? He states, yes, but do not miss the point. He is a son of God, as are all of you. I knew he would say that. I asked that same question, knowing he would say the same thing. Oh, twin flame question. He wants to answer this one. Okay. The question is, in some of your readings, you have said that Jesus and Mother Mary were twin flames. I personally feel that they were twin souls. and that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were twin flames. Can you give me more information? He states, Jesus and the mother of Jesus were indeed soulmates. There are many forms of relevance between soulmates. It matters not the type, you're all one and the same. Okay, another question from the event section here. What is the purpose of Jesus's incarnation on earth? He states, to glorify the Christ consciousness in the earth, in the lives of those with whom ye come in contact, and to live the same thyself, just as indicated. Jesus is the man, the activity, the mind, the relationship that he bore to others. Yea, he was mindful of friends, he was sociable, he was loving, he was kind, he was gentle, he grew faint, he grew weak, and yet gained that strength that he has promised in becoming Christ by fulfilling and overcoming the world. You are made strong in body, in mind, in soul, and purpose by that power in Christ. The power then is in the Christ. The pattern is in Jesus. Many people are asking, why so many questions about Jesus? I have no idea, but I kind of do. Logically speaking, it's interesting. He had a really strong connection to Jesus. But also I'm channeling Yeshua, as you guys are aware, tomorrow. So what I'm noticing is that both of them are coming in together. So it could be this is why these are the questions that Cayce is picking out have to do with Jesus. He picked out other questions too, though. Don't worry. We'll keep going. Someone said he was a Christian mystic. Yeah, the New Thought era. He was the beginning of that. Okay, let's keep going. Can you please ask Edgar Cayce about his affiliation with David Wilcock? He says, I will not choose to delve very deeply into this person's private business. However, we have a soul contract, and many know that there is indeed a reincarnated connection. Okay, let's move on to an event page question. Can you tell us more about the unknown past lives of Jesus? He states, he was Emilius, Adam, Enoch, Melchizedek, Joshua, Asaph, and Yeshua ben Joseph. And that is just the beginning. Okay, looking at some of your live questions here. Can you please ask Edgar if it is possible to predict future events with a pendulum? He said, that is an interesting observation, being that as a projection of source, you can predict anything with or without a tool, but your body becomes a tool. However, the electronic impulses within your body will direct this flow. So if you believe that an answer from a pendulum will indeed be yes, then it shall be yes. If you believe that it shall be no, then it shall be no. Okay, I have an interesting experience with pendulums. They won't move for me. I don't know if the rest of you clear conduit channels have issues with pendulums. I literally will hold it still, and because I don't operate from my body, channels just really don't operate very well from our bodies, so nothing comes through that's personal at all. So the pendulum just sits very still. Do you guys go through that too? Let's take another event page question. Can you give us a strong method of meditation? When I asked him this question earlier today, because I was curious about it too, he started singing in my head, and I could hear this tone, and it sounds a lot like, for those of you who watch my Horus channeling, it sounds a lot like what Horus calls source tones. And I could hear it, but I'm gonna have a hard time spelling it, but he is telling me that he taught people to meditate while singing this tone, either with verbally with their mouths or in their minds. So It is like R, like just the letter R or AR, and then E, and then So it sounds like I Now he had it a little bit more separated, you know, when he was singing it to me, but he likes those syllables, and he was singing them over and over. And as we all know, is such a sacred term. So let's see what else he's saying here. He said, start with this sacred sound and then proceed to 2 stages of meditation. Stage 1, commit to your intention and think upon this as an affirmation. After a few moments of pondering your affirmation, hold these words in silent attention in your mind. Bring your focus back to these words if your mind starts to wander. Think firstly on the words of your affirmation and then focus on the feeling state behind them. If you do this for around 5 to 15 minutes to start, longer meditation periods can occur when you've built some experience. Do not become discouraged. After ending each meditation, send out prayers, positive thoughts, and peaceful energy to others, whether it be your loved ones and family or other countries in need, always in your meditations with sending peaceful energy to earth. Okay, let's take another one of your live questions. Just a second, I'm looking through them. What can you tell us about the Aryans? Aryans. I hope I'm pronouncing that accurately. He states, they are one of many of the Lemurian people that embodied the civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria in stage 1. And he's doing like this, 1, 2, 3, as to imply as if there are 3 stages. And he says the Aryans are stage 1 in 3 people that embodied, 3 groups of people that embodied Atlantis and Lemuria. Okay, let's take another question from your event page. What is your view on karma? He states, karma is not divinely ordained. It is programmed memory. Most of your experiences are subject to your own choices made from human free will. Will you choose to turn your challenges into spiritual growth, or will you choose to see them as impeding obstacles that involve suffering? Either way, you will reap what you sow. Karmic memories do influence your perception. These memories are in your unconscious mind. They influence your abilities, perceived faults, even your relationship with others. But with free will, you can meet this memory as a positive or negative experience. Karma provides you with the potential to learn a lesson you need in order to grow at a soul level. And free will determines whether or not you choose to learn it at this time. The choice determines the next set of potential experiences you encounter in life. Okay, let's take another question that's live. I dreamt of him last night. Does that have to do with my awakening? He states, many of you who come through my soul group will have profound dreams, not just of me, but this was in your subconscious. And if this was in your subconscious the day prior to this channeling, this could be why, and it could be time for your awakening to commence and broaden. Just looking at another of your questions here. What about soulmates? What's your take on this? One of you is asking. He states the idea of soulmates and affinities is closely related to the theory of reincarnation as explained through my readings. 2 souls may, in a number of incarnations, grow very close together in their pattern of spiritual evolution. These souls will need the help and assistance of each other as they evolve, and hence, in any one incarnation, will be drawn closely together because of their many past associations and the intricate intertwining of their respective personalities. But no, the soul's rather the soulmate of the universal consciousness than of any individual entity. Okay, and then the same person went on to ask about marriage and how to choose a partner for marriage or committed relationships. In response to both of those questions, he says, may I please reference to reading 275:38, such as have in an experience found an ideal may be said to be soulmates, and no marriages are made in heaven, nor by the Father, save as each do his biddings. As helpful as marriage relationships may be upon earth, beyond this material domain, it is our destiny to find wholeness within our own souls. May I also please refer you to reading 364:7, with a union of two that vibrate or respond to those vibrations in self. I'm just trying to figure out what he means by that because I'm feeling it. And he's confirming, I'm asking him, does that mean a vibratory presence of, do you feel good around the person? Is the vibration the same? And he's responding to me and saying, vibration isn't the mere analysis of feeling good. He wants it to work on a practical level as well, he's saying. He's always been a really practical person. That's what I'm getting so far from knowing him in these past several months. Okay. Someone asked from the live question and answer section, are there any symbols that are in connection with ancient Lemuria? And he's showing me them, and one looks like the another one looks like the Merkaba, another one is in appearance to be a flower of life, except there are three of them, one here, one here, one here, as if in triangle form, and then a Merkaba behind it. So that was a more complicated symbol that represented the entire collective of Atlantis and Lemuria. He's also saying there are many, many symbols, and they will be shown to you in your dreams. And he's explaining to me, he's going on to explain that many beings who come from Atlantis and Lemuria, and that's a lot of us, he says, a lot of us, are coming from Atlantis and Lemuria, will experience symbology in dreams and will be given their soul family's unique symbols, and then entire conscious collective symbols as well that go for all of us. You will get those in dreams if you can ask and if you can set your intention to know this. Another question. Where are the Hall of Records located on Earth, and when will they be discovered? He's looking at me like I'm just a little bit far-fetched. He says to me, he's saying, for one who accesses the Hall of Records rather frequently, you should understand that there is one Hall of Records that represents each soul group. So as for their discovery, that would be difficult because they are not in this dimension. From the soul groups that arise from Atlantis and Lemuria, these records are located underneath what you call the Sphinx in Egypt. That's where the Hall of Records are located for our soul group. I'm speaking our because most of us who are watching him are in that soul group. Okay. Someone asked me from the event page, what is his galactic origin? I found it an interesting question because, of course, that's one of the first things I ask beings. And he said, in the beginning, we are all God. And I said, okay, well, what about in the beginning of incarnation experiences? And then he went on to tell me that he incarnated as an Arcturian and as a Venusian. So that was quite interesting. He also states that he guides a lot of blue avians, here on this planet. So let me take another one of your live questions. Give me just a second. This is interesting because you're asking a medical question. He's a medical intuitive, a wonderful one. I'm a medical intuitive, so I love these kind of questions. Feel free to load them up. My favorite kind of questions. The question is, I have a facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, FHS muscular dystrophy. Does he see a cure for FSH muscular dystrophy, and what causes it, or what can I do to regain my muscle strength? He said from the physiological perspective, it is caused by a lack of electronic response. Now I have to stop him here for a moment because he gave me the same answer when I was asking him what causes multiple sclerosis and peripheral neuropathy, because I had a question because someone that I love has those kind of problems in his body. And he told me that there is a lack of electrical response and then an overabundance of an electrical response coming from the brain and the spinal column. And he says this then produces a lot of inflammation. And then he said something to me that it was interesting. I had to stop what I was doing and ask people in my household what this meant. But he said to use a wet cell battery with any weak electrical charge to regulate your neurological system. And this will regenerate myelin sheaths. And then this is for the multiple sclerosis cure and the peripheral neuropathy cure. But insofar as muscular dystrophy, he said it's the same issue, that what he discovered from the veil is that the same issue applies, that the electrical charges and the neurons that control the muscles, even though it is genetic, you can reset that and the body can go back to a natural state by using a wet cell battery. He said that you can find all this information in his readings as well, except that he didn't know at that time that FHS muscular dystrophy has the same cure as does MS and peripheral neuropathy. So there you have it. Let's look at another one of your questions from the event section. And it is, what is the difference between meditation and prayer? He said through prayers, you speak to God. Through meditation, God speaks to you. And I had a question to him. This was my first question to him because I noticed that he and I and many clear conduits around the world have issues with the throat chakra and laryngitis, anything to do with losing your voice. So as someone who started out in life, when I was in my younger years, before I was a channel, I was trained in opera. And I had to stop training in opera because I kept getting horrible pneumonia, tonsillitis, tonsil nodules, laryngitis, you name it, it was horrible. And I'm sure that many of you who are channels who are watching today probably have that same issue with the throat chakra. Asthma, I had asthma like mad. I don't anymore. Well, I do still have asthma, but it doesn't come up very often. So I asked him this question. I said to him, you lost your voice many times in your earlier years. And I wanted to ask him, does he believe that kind of significant repetitive loss of voice was due to not honoring his channeling abilities further? And he said to me that channels do indeed lose their voices very often because they are not honoring their innate path, because the path of the channel is to fully commit into Christ consciousness and to fully stand in an act of service. Their entire life is an act of service, and that if they are serving but not in the path into which they are ordained, that it's not going to work, that basically their bodies won't comply and their vocal cords will produce a psychological response, as will their lungs and many other issues. And that's basically what he said. And he was telling me about his time in his 20s. He told me that he worked with his dad for an older insurance company that he called Woodmen of America. And that's when he began to lose his voice, because spirit in him knew that he would have just continued just seeking these pragmatic paths, but not really honoring his ability. So anytime he would try to work in ways that put money first, but not putting the ethics of what he meant to do first, he would lose his voice. And that continued for a couple years or so. And he had to hired someone to put him into trance state to heal it. And then if he went back to the path of not honoring, the clear conduit channel's mission, then he would lose it again. And then he'd have to hire that same being to put him back into a trance, and then it would come out again. And eventually, once he was fully on his path, he never lost his voice again. So here, to the channels out there, I'm talking to myself. I had that same issue. I lost my voice many times, and I haven't had an episode of laryngitis in about 2 years now, so I feel like I'm on the right path finally. Let's take a look at one of your, gosh, we have 179 questions. I'm gonna have to move quicker. Okay, this is a good one. You said from Russia comes the hope of the world. Does that still hold? He's nodding, absolutely. He's stating that from China, comes some destruction at the rate we're going, and from Russia holds the hope of the world. So he believes that still holds true. Let's look at one of your Facebook event questions. And this kind of goes into that. The question is, how do you feel about the possibility of an impending world war? His answer is, the issues in Libya, Egypt, and Syria are the beginning of just that. Also, your country may resist a currency change, which will cause tensions to increase towards this unfortunate event. It can still shift, and it has been shifting, but you must proceed to unite with less fear, less confusion, and more trust. I've been noticing the changes, just from my perspective, by the way. I've been noticing the shifts into a more positive collective with, I'm getting a lot less imminent disaster type of visions. So I believe that things are going to shift, just so you know. The question is, and this is a live one, I have just begun reading the Akashic records. Do you have any suggestions or advice? He said, each and every unique spirit and entity has their own perception of the Akasha as it is written by them, this unique entity. Ask in your dreams, keep a dream journal, pay attention to your dreams, perform more spiritual practices in your waking hours as well, including meditation and many spiritual disciplines and studies. The Akasha is a discipline to learn. Okay, here's another question from the event section. What is the Book of Life? And his answer is, the Book of Life is the record that the individual entity itself writes upon the skein of time and space through patience, and is opened when self has attuned to the infinite and may be read by those attuning to that consciousness. Let's move on to a live question. How hard was it for Edgar Cayce to handle the channeling he did, coming from a fundamental Christian background? Good question. He states, it took me a considerable amount of years to ascertain the distinct difference in my conscious hours. In unconscious states, I was well aware that the Christ consciousness was well within me and was projected through the entire world, and then it did not apply to religion. But during my waking hours, in my conscious states, it was very difficult. And in my early years, I questioned if my work was legitimate. That's hard. That's a matter of programming. I had that same issue, coming from a religious background where I really, really questioned, the Bible says this, the Bible says that. And it took a while. It took a while for him to. For most channels, if you're experiencing that, keep in mind what he said earlier in the channeling, that the Christ consciousness is a distinct difference from that of Jesus Christ, the being. Whenever I say Jesus Christ, he goes, that who you call Jesus Christ. By the way, he just corrected me. Programming, someone said, yeah, it is. Another question from the event page, how do you feel about astrology? He said, it is not the positions of the planets that influence the soul at birth, but that the soul chooses the time in which it wishes to be born. In between lifetimes, however, there is a planetary sojourn. The soul experiences this interim period wherein it takes time to experience and then choose into which plane of existence it will arrive next. Because we have had experiences with the vibrations of the different planets between lifetimes, the planets have an internal influence on us when we reincarnate into the earth plane. These influences of the planets are felt by us in the form of inclinations, tendencies, urges within our personalities. However, no influence is greater than the human will and the choices we make in our lives every day. Not that there are not definite helps to be attained from astrology, but those who live by saying the more oft are controlled rather than controlling their own lives and destinies. Astrology is a fact in most instances, but astrological aspects are but signs and symbols. No influence is of greater value or of greater help than the will of an individual. Okay, let's look at one of your live questions. I'm just going to back up because I'm kind of watching your chat simultaneously and I'm catching little questions about what he said earlier about the wet battery. I don't know. Take a peek at his readings and you'll find out. Maybe look at the Encyclopedia of Healing or something that has a more comprehensive database. But yeah, I do believe it was a therapy, like a wet cell battery therapy. Okay, I'm looking for another live question. Give me a second. What is the most effective way of me helping people heal emotionally? He pointed back at you. You know what he's going to say. He said, healer, heal thyself. And he's also stating it is not a concern that it would be negative in the aspect and definition of what you are calling a wounded healer. It is quite necessary for compassion and for the role of grace. However, the most effective way is to begin in service and then in recognition of what could stand to be healed within you. Okay. About Atlantis. Okay, one of you said, tell me more about Atlantis. Okay. He said it was a rather large continent. Many have stated that it is myth. It has been proven time and time again. Which proof will you look towards? It's greater than the size of Asia within Europe. Atlantis suffered 3 divisive periods. The first 2 occurrences were around 15,600 BCE. The mainland was divided into islands, Poseida, Og, and Arion. Many people living today are reincarnations of Atlanteans, and you have the same temptations and choices you did back then. The inclination is to war with each other. But the ultimate goal for you would be to release your needs and desires for duality in your notions and in your inclinations. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to another live question. How did you deal with the disappointments in your life, and how did your calling fit into that? Meaning, do you feel that disappointments led you to what you ultimately did with your life? He said, it was a difficult era. I was indeed chastised into all the depths to re-examine my nature, to keep my ethics pure, and to understand that my need was not for the fame, but for the money. I am for the people. Okay, let's look at another event page question. Can you tell us how you feel about the mind-body-spirit concept? He states spirit is the life, mind is the builder, physical is the result. Everything you see was created by the mind into physical matter, but physical matter is not true reality. Spirit is truth. Okay. Okay, back to a Russia and Islam question. He wants me to take it. Your prediction of Islam taking over the world seems to be coming true right before our eyes. Will Russia be the last Christian nation in the world as you predicted as well? He states, except that in this shift, Russia is shifting into Christ consciousness and will very soon lose their connection to the definitions of Christianity. That might be good. Okay, let's look at another event page question. This question is about diet. Can you give us dietary recommendations based on what you believe now? He states, avoid red meat, alcohol, fried foods, and white bread. Fruits are the ultimate food for humans, along with leafy vegetables. Please strive for at least an 80% ratio of alkaline foods. A handful of almonds a day do still keep the cancer away. Almonds, huh? I drink almond milk all the time, and I was wondering why I'm so attracted to almond milk as opposed to rice milk. It's always almond or hemp milk or coconut, but almond's my top choice. Yay. Okay, let's look at another live question. Can you tell us about the use and application of the Merkaba? He states, again, this is a conscious, Atlantean and Lemurian conscious collective tool, a sacred symbol for unity, and it is to be utilized for such. The Merkaba can heal Earth. So good to know. Let's look at another event page question. Tell us about a significant past life of yours. He states, I was a pharaoh known as Ra-Ta. I built a center for healing that I called the Temple of Sacrifice. I built an educational institute. It was called Temple Beautiful. My life on earth as Edgar and as David are a continuation of this ancient work. I hope you guys caught that, because he's not going to say more about it. I know you did. Let's move on. How do I know what healing gift I have, or how can I heal myself? He states, find the spiritual cause if it is a physical malady. If it is an emotional malady, find the spiritual cause. It all goes back to the spiritual cause. What is the belief system? The belief system, whether it be positive or negative, perhaps it isn't applicable to change it to positive or negative. What if you don't believe that it can be positive? Then don't choose positive, choose neutral. Choose something which you can believe. This is the true key to the next steps in healing yourselves. The healing gift within its nature will arise in service. What calls to your heart when you serve humanity? What causes passion? When you serve humanity, this passion will be invoked. When your passion is invoked, you will naturally know what your gift is. It will be there in the background. It is subtle. It is not glaring. Pay attention. Let's take another question from the event page. Can anyone awaken their own psychic abilities? Oh, this is kind of a similar question. Okay. He says yes. Psychic development is essentially a natural byproduct of a soul's growth. Recollect, record, and interpret your dreams. This will be the catalyst for your own psychic development. Follow the guidance in your dreams when your intuition guides you as such. This is one way to develop your spiritual self. Focus on Christ consciousness first and foremost. This is the bigger way to develop into your psychic realms. Okay, let's take another live question. I would love to know if we are able to heal and regrow teeth by thought, or is there any other method which you recommend? That's unusual. He's showing me butter and grass. It's a symbol. It's a grass-fed butter. Okay. That's an interesting thing because a close friend of mine went through that recently, and while her teeth are not regrowing yet, she actually did heal a really horrible cavity, and then she prevented herself from the need for a root canal because of grass-fed butter. So that's interesting. This is a way of oil pulling. He said in his time they used buttermilk, but now it's grass-fed butter. Something to know. He said, from the spiritual perspective, consider your words. Words can be toxin. They can be vitriolic in nature. Consider your words. Are they poisonous to your mouth? He's like that. It makes so much sense, but it's so simple, but yet it's so profound. Okay, let's take another look at an event page question, and it is, why do predictions change? He states, predictions are subject to countless outside influences within human free will. Your collective is changing, this time for the better. While you are on the brink of war almost daily, you change this outcome daily into a more beneficial one. Let's see, let's take another question. You guys have so many, 212 now. I'm just going to start flying through. Has the time come for the veil to be lifted, or does it depend in what reality we are? For some of us feel the veil has been lifted. He's pointing and nodding, and he says, for some of you, it has. In my time, I ascertained and believed that Atlantis and Lemuria would be a collective enlightenment and a collective gathering, a collective rising. It is now occurring in individual modalities. Many of you believe that you are in war and you have created such a reality. You believe that politics own you, control you, master you. In your minds, this creates confusion and fear, and this has become your reality. Many of you see nothing but peace and love and compassion, and you are in service to those who still believe that they are in war. And these are both realities. Another question from the event page, when should we receive a psychic reading? His answer is, seek only those readings within the context of spiritual growth, of learning about yourselves, and of being service to others. Okay, I'm going to look at another one of your live questions. Give me a second. Do you still agree with many of your ideas about Atlantis? This is along the lines of what he was just talking about, okay. Would you say now about our kind of, what would you say now about our kind of obsession with that time and place? He said, it is not an obsession, it is a passion. And your passion invokes the truth. Follow it, allow it to guide you, and understand that you are having, for once, a miraculous perception in your reality. You can choose to do something differently. Okay. Looking at your questions, give me a second. Why is my short-term memory so bad, and how can I fix it? He says, my daughter, you seek to escape reality, and it is quite simply such that in your need for escaping Earth, you choose to forget. And why is this so bad? Okay, next question. I never know what to ask. Why do I feel blocked? He states, why do you perceive that anything is a block? Perhaps you simply don't need to know, or you don't want to know. If you don't want to know, you are your own guide. And again, why should this be bad or perceived as bad? Is Edgar Cayce's modality of giving readings possible for everyone to do, or was he equipped with special gifts? He said, anyone can trance. And when you learn to put yourself into a trance, it can be a beautiful tool. Take heed to care for your bodies before, during, and afterwards. In the beginning stages of discipline within the trance channel, do not do so often. Space out. He says like this, space out the times in the beginning stages of your development. Anyone can give readings for themselves and others in trance channelings. Yes, it is a discipline. All spiritual development is a discipline. Many are born with an innate access to these gifts, more so than others, but any can access the gifts within discipline and study. Give me just a moment. I'm looking through your questions. I am newly pregnant and curious to know the best ways I can help. He said, begin by caring for yourself and your body. And within your diet, keeping a perfect alkaline balance is very important during states of pregnancy. Is a fractal of your soul living on earth? He did already answer this question in terms of a being that he calls David, but he doesn't want to infringe too much upon that being's unique presence and personality and choices. He does say that person's doing a good job. Okay, another live question. Give me a second. Okay, my friend's grandson is 9 years old and having severe acid reflux problems to the point they were afraid he is having a heart attack. There is no heart attack, but now they don't know what is going on with him. He said, have you considered that it also could be anxiety? And he's doing like this. He said the child is clutching, that the reflux and the anxiety, the combination of the two, that he's clutching himself right here, that he clutches and scratches at his chest. So consider that it could also be anxiety. He states that many children who are coming from the Atlantean soul groups are incredibly allergic to dairy. So you're going to need to omit dairy products for that child altogether, like none, zero. And someone else said, and eat low acidic foods, and he's nodding about that too. And he's going back to the reference point of an 80% alkaline presence in the body. Looking at your questions, give me a moment. We have a few more minutes and then we're going to close. An eyesight question, and she says, I've been discharged from the hospital. The doctors can help me no further. Okay, they can help me no further with surgical intervention. Is there anything further I can do to help improve my eyesight? He's stating that you likely have a degenerative effect that is macular and genetic, and he's stating that one side is worse than the other. He's trancing. I can tell his personality when it goes into trance changes. And he now states from trance, and ye shall see what ye shall choose to see, and ye shall not see what you shall choose to not see. He comes out of trance and he states, accept all vision as coming from within. So if something is projected as an external, it comes from you. If something appears to be coming from you, it also is projected externally. Discern no difference, it is same. Okay. Let's see. Looking at your questions just a second. What do you think I am that I am means? He said, it is simple. It is nothing extraneous. There is unity. There is no separation. It is simple. I am. There requires no definition. You have stepped into a full realization that you are spirit, that you are source, and you require no further personality definition. Okay. Does he see us going into galactic ships to heal, as so many are saying? He's nodding. He said, and this continues and shall continue. It is quite necessary. It is occurring now. Have the remedies you channeled remained the same over time? In other words, are they still effective? He said, many have changed. It would require a significant amount of time to channel each renovation, and to renovate these records would require a significant channel's experience. He's saying that about 50% have changed significantly, but that they still work according to a person's belief. He said, and belief is the key to this. Many of my remedies were the same, whether it was the castor oil or the, I can't pronounce this word, adamantite. For those of you ARE people, you'll know what I'm talking about, because I sure don't. These are the same, and they still apply as a basis to many remedies. But it is the belief that causes it to be so. He's going on to give me a specific experience where he had a cousin, a younger cousin who's female, and he says that he didn't have time to apply what he got in the, in a session for her, and he couldn't remember it exactly, but his cousin believed so strongly that any remedy would work, and it did. He got the best of his recollection, and then he was told later that there was something missing, but that didn't matter because that person's belief was so strong. So just keep that in mind. Kind of a placebo effect, if you will, in some of the times. And we are hardwired, physically speaking, to either believe something will work or it won't. So take mind in your choices. What will you choose? He's stating. Taking another question. Give me a moment. Looking through. Was he surprised by anything when he crossed over? I couldn't even get the question out, and he's nodding. Absolutely no. Next question. Give me a second. Does Dr. Cayce see any problems coming into the western United States, Oregon, Washington, California, such as earthquakes or missile strikes and these types of disasters? I've been holding to the peace for our areas and don't feel it coming anytime soon, but I wanted his insight. He's stating that he's less concerned for California, more concerned for New York. Within the next 5 years, he is very concerned for New York. Within the next 10 to 11 years, he is very concerned for Arkansas, Louisiana, and Alabama, that there will be waters flooding these 3 states at the rate that they're going in the conscious collective. He states, and again, any of these predictions could shift. My prediction shifted considerably and many did not occur. The California prediction has completely shifted so that it isn't likely that it would be possible for the western coast to be completely obliterated. So there are many changes. He's still, again, I'm going to repeat that. He's concerned for New York, and he is within the next 5 years, and he's concerned for Alabama, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and he's still claiming, he said, I still make a claim towards the Great Lakes, water flooding from the Great Lakes. So this is an interesting, some of it has changed, some of it hasn't. I'm just reading your question, give me a second. My question for Dr. Cayce is, why or how do young children change their circumstances that they can't control? He stopped. You said more in your question, but he did like this, for me to stop. He's very succinct. And he says, and the operative statement in your words, that they can't control. If they can't control, then why should you control it? Because you are perceiving this as bad or negative. Please consider that this world is a dream, a projection of your choices. They are indeed not suffering, as this is not a reality. This is not real. And when you leave this form, you will understand that none of it ever was real. So why should we try to control this? He asked me to move forward with the rest of your question now. And it is, you said, it's very hard to understand why so many children are suffering, or in our families, or circumstances of suffering. It's hard to wrestle this as part of their plan. He states, if you choose, it is simple. While it is difficult, if you choose to perceive this as suffering, it becomes suffering. If you choose to perceive this as divine and perfect in its order, then it will cease. Okay. Is he good with his foundation as it is today? He's stating there are renovations going on to the library and he needs help. The foundation needs help based upon the need for renovations of these library, but he is very excited about the direction that ARE is proceeding. That's good. Is castor oil still good for gout? He said, and again, castor oil is good for many things. Okay. Did he mention the violet ray during his channeling? He is nodding and he says it has indeed been mentioned and is an effective tool. And he is aware that the ARE is implementing this as a tool as we speak, even further. Still looking at your questions. We have just a few minutes left. What advice and exercises can he give to anyone wanting to give readings like he did? He states, for the trance channel, it is a matter of getting out of your own way. It's a matter of deep breathing, not short breaths, as you would call them, baby breaths, longer, deep breaths that expand from the stomach, not from the shoulders or from the head. Longer, deep breaths that expand from the stomach, and a deep relaxation wherein you get out of your own way. Allow yourself to drift in between the space where you feel as if you are almost sleeping, but not quite. And then you will be there, and it is quite simple. And you will recognize that the responses in your personality are not usual, and then you will know you have come to this point. Okay, looking at more of your questions, give me a moment. Could you please explain the spiritual meaning behind the epidemic of mysterious diseases like Epstein-Barr, irritable bowel syndrome, etc., and what cures would you recommend as remedies from your perspective now? He states for Epstein-Barr, understand that the spiritual cause could be that you are attacking your own divine nature, and this is lack of acceptance at a soul level. You have come and brought this karmic response into the world, and then within your free will and your belief systems, acclimated that this will be normal and natural not to accept yourselves. When you accept yourselves, you will not attack yourselves, and then these mystery viruses will disappear. They will vanish. From the perspective of physiological treatment, I highly recommend Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic diet. Looking at another question now, give me a second. Is there a difference between source collective that he is speaking from and the Akashic records, and can we all access this? He states you can access your unique Akashic records, but it will be from your own perspective, much like how you view from your human eyes and the channel through which I seek. through which I speak sees the camera in front of her. And this is what she sees for the moment. She has blurred out anything further, and in her thoughts it is only I. But if she accesses from trance state, she is deeper than she is deeper than I, and she steps immediately into source consciousness. The trance is the answer to accessing source consciousness from a collective level. If you can master your trance states, anyone can access the book of life. Okay. Angels, extraterrestrials, and humans in spirit, are they just expressions of the same source? Why are there... Oh, microphone problem, hang on. I should put the microphone closer to me next time. I knew he would eventually blow the microphone because Yeshua stepped in and wanted to answer that question. Hopefully I'm good now, okay. Why are there uniquenesses, and how does this work with the uniqueness of each? So we don't have a Edgar Cayce answer to that. He stepped aside because Yeshua stepped in. We'll also be channeling Yeshua tomorrow, by the way, around the same time, 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And Yeshua is stating that it is from... Each of these beings are from the same source normally, but there are unique soul groups. There is but one source, but in unique soul groups, it is simple, yet in the human mind frame, there is no point of reference to which you will comprehend. So he's showing me columns, and he's showing me like I'm seeing a big ocean up here, and he says, okay, an ocean, every particle in there is still from the same source, but when the ocean flows into the lake, you have a unique group of souls in that one lake, and there's another lake over here. This is a unique group of many fractals of the same source projection, and then there's a lake over here. So then it trickles down into a river, and then a reservoir, tributary, stream, creek, mud puddle, down and down and down and down. And then along the way, there are those unique differences. He's going like that along the way. You have your differences based upon your view of separation. And the more you perceive yourself to be separate, you perceive yourself to be further away and lesser than. And as this occurs, you develop unique, distinct personalities. Okay. All right, guys, I really, really enjoyed this so much. I've got to go prepare for the rest of my day and take some rest. Thank you so much for this lovely session. I'm going to go ahead and let management end it now. Namaste.